What sets top performing individuals apart? What sets top performing individuals apart? We'll answer that today. My name is Gabriel Griess, the host of Navigating Leaders podcast, where we awaken your vision and live boldly. Today, I'm thrilled to have Brandon Smeltzer with us today, the founder and coach at Undefeated Growth. Undefeated Growth. And just an amazing coach, and so excited to have him here. So if you welcome here with me, Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so good. So we had a great conversation the other day. You got a copy of the results tree. We've had a chance to ground. Tell the audience kind of your journey into coaching, what you do, and then we'll jump into it.
Getting into coaching was a providential accident. I was a junior high football coach, high school baseball coach, and I was at a place in my career where on a motivation side, I really wanted to make an impact in the lives of others. A lot of people who get into sports coaching, they get into sports coaching because they want to see transformation and results in the lives of people. They don't just want to win games. We were winning games, but I saw no difference in the lives of the young people that I coached. They were acting the same in the hallway as they were at the beginning of the season. And the great challenge was I was doing all the right things that a character-driven, even a faith-based coach is supposed to do. I was doing a Bible study with the boys. I was encouraging and affirming, and I wasn't degrading the young men, but there was not transformation. And I realized that my methodology had to change. And so from that space, I went on a journey of asking a question: what would transform the lives of these young men? What was the missing ingredient from knowing the truth, and they knew the truth, and actually living it out? And that season.
So let me hear.
Yeah.
Let me hear. So you've created winning sports teams,
correct?
Right, and you're a fit dude and probably a great athlete in your own right.
I was okay.
All right.
I wasn't great.
All right.
I was okay.
All right. That's usually what great athletes say.
Well,
And so you create this environment and you're getting the performance results on the field, but the individual growth, the maturing, if you will, the different choices or better choices, you're not seeing that happen. So what's missing?
So what I realized with the young men, what was missing was action, small, repeatable action. So it wasn't an issue of knowing truth. It was an issue of trying. It was an issue of taking the truth of where we wanted to grow, of being a better son, being a better brother to a sibling, being more honorable to a teacher in the hallway, and taking and actually turning it into small actions and interpreting it at the lowest possible level and repeating that to get the change. They knew the right things. These are young men who come from great families. They go to a great school, value-driven school, faith-based school. So they hear the truth constantly. The gap is doing the truth, not just knowing it.
Just that simple, go from off to on.
Absolutely.
Wow. So was there an assumption that they would just know what to do?
I think the assumption for me coming into coaching was that if you tell people the right things, they're going to do the right things. Like just knowing the right things will produce the right actions. It was an assumption. And it was an assumption that I had observed in coaches who had come before me, the coaches who had mentored me. And I guess I just realized what really set me back was I was walking through the school hallway and I looked at our trophy cabinet, and it was in the summer, and there were all these gold trophies that had been won at the school, some of which I had contributed to. And I'm looking at them collect dust and realizing that the janitor that summer had to move some trophies out to make room for new trophies. That's awesome. It's a winning school, a lot of success. But the reality of it is those dusty trophies that get put on a shelf or even thrown away, what's the sum total of those wins and those winning seasons? If not transformation in the lives of the people. And if the lives of the people who contributed to those championships were not transformed in a way that goes beyond the athletics, what was it all for? And so I pulled back, and it was really humbling to go winning and going undefeated. The word undefeated is huge. We built our company's name around that. It started with a season where I'm training the kids hard. I'm working hard with the kids, and we had parent conflict. I had parents banging down my door about why their kids weren't getting as many catches and why their kid wasn't getting as much playing time. There was conflict among the young men, but I'm doing the Bible studies. I'm doing the character talks, but they're still having conflict. And at the end of the season, it was an undefeated 10-0 season, but it was misery. So we're winning. Our practices are working in a performance side, but what was really meant to transform the young men was not getting results. And I knew something had to change in the fundamental way in which I approached the people. This is really important. I have this math inequality. I'm not a math guy,
okay.
But I have this math inequality that just it's seared deeply inside me. And it's this simple inequality. The adult is greater than the athlete. The young people that I've worked with for a long time, they will be athletes for 10, 15% of their life. They will be adults for 80% of their life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The adulthood is greater than the athlete. And if what is happening in that sport is not translating into lifelong success, I'm failing fundamentally at what I was doing. And and so I sat back and went, man, I'm failing at what I'm doing. I have to change my approach.
Wow. Yeah. Like, so the NCAA tournament, when it's on, a lot of times has that banner that says 98% of student athletes go pro in something other than their sport.
Yes.
Right. So it's that
right.
building the adult part. So talk to me about pulling back. Talk to me about that season. What did you go through?
Yeah.
How did you do it? And then when it was done, did you come back to coaching?
Absolutely. I'll still coach junior high sports. I coach high school sports in certain settings. Now I'm in a season where when that was probably 15 years ago, my kids were much younger and I was purely Coach Smeltzer, Coach Brandon.
Yep.
Now I'm dad and I get a chance to coach their teams. And so I've stayed in the coaching space, sports coaching space ever since. But what set back was I spent probably an entire summer, a lot of soul searching. Faith is very important for me. I'm a man who, when I was 19 years old, I had a radical encounter with Jesus Christ and he transformed me. He took me from as a college athlete who found identity in sports, and he gave me identity in him. And that faith in Jesus Christ permeates every part of my life. But just because I had faith in Jesus Christ doesn't mean that I could really make a transformational impact in the people around me. And so I spent an entire summer reading books. There was books I was reading. Proverbs was extremely helpful for me. Mm-hmm. And then there was a passage of scripture. All of those culminated in one simple thing, a sense that instead of doing Bible studies or character talks every week that change like a revolving door. This week, we're going to talk about integrity. Next week, we're going to talk about faithfulness, and we're going to talk about diligence. Instead of a revolving door of character talks to inform, I'm going to take one simple truth that they can build their entire life on. That if we didn't talk after the season ended, but they lived out that principle daily, they would be miles ahead in life. So it has to be something, and this is the art of this is it has to be both timely, where they're at as an athlete, but timeless for where they're going as an adult. And there was a book that was really influential for me in that season of helping shape that one single truth for the young men. And once I got that single truth, then the strategy was I'm going to tell it to the young men 50 times in 50 ways. But most importantly, I'm going to hold an environment around my team that requires these young men to try it either on a daily or a weekly basis in their unique context. So the young man who comes from parents who are divorced will try that truth in a different way than the young man who has mom and dad. The young man who has mom and dad but is an only child will live out that truth a little bit different. The young man who lives in a neighborhood next door to a widow might live out that truth in a different way to serve that widow than that young man who lives in a different community. But the point is, they're going to live it. And I'm going to leverage my influence as a sports coach to hold them accountable, to turn it into action. And by the end of that first season, I had moms coming to me crying. And one mom said to me, "What did you do to my son?"
In a good way.
In a good way,
Yeah.
with tears in her eyes. And she said this. She said, I gave him to you and he was selfish. He was me. By the end of the season, he was coming to her, you, what can I do for you? I'll tell one story.
So before you get to the story, like give us an example of one of these character traits that you had the team live out for the season.
So the truth for that particular group of athletes, it was really simple. Success in life as a man is determined by relationships. Now that flies in the face of the three most common things that men are told make them a success. Men are told that their accomplishments make them a success. They're quote unquote D1. They're all state. They're the founder of a company. They're the CEO, whatever it is. It just takes different titles later on. A sense of accomplishment, like sexual accomplishment, of being able to get girls or appeal, things like that. Pride, success, how much I know, how much I have, my stuff. Those are all success markers, faulty, flawed success markers. And so I attacked it straight on. There was a book that really informed me on this. It was incredible. Seasons of Life.
Is that the name of the book?
Yeah, Seasons of Life by Jeffrey Marks. It was about a football coach in Baltimore who brought a similar principle to the young men in his school. And so I borrowed the heart of that truth and I put it before the boys and I said, here's the reality. If your relationships are failing, you are failing. I don't care about our record. And then I said, you are going to do something either weekly or daily to add value to your core relationships. And I defined the core relationships around the young men. And each of the young men interpreted and translated that truth into small, meaningful actions in their core relationships. And they just repped it. And by the end of the season, you had a young man who, instead of just co-living with a little sister that he didn't get along with, had actually went out of his way and asked her if she wanted to play 10 times at the point in the season. And by rep number 8, the young man realized that a lot of the dynamic of tension with his little sister was tied to his contributions, not hers. He started the season saying, she's so annoying, she's so this. But by the end of the season, he recognized his own failings that he brought to the table. And the best part of it all, Gabriel, was I didn't have to sit down and teach it. I reverse taught them. By their reps, they realized. And then what I just found, when people realize things by their own actions, it lasts longer and it sinks deeper into their minds and in their hearts and their living, rather than something I just hand off and inform. And so all the stuff that I wanted to teach young men through the weekly Bible studies or the character talks, we actually reversed in by their living reps and practice. And that first season, I thought, man, I've got this thing. It's going to change sports forever. Little did I know where it would go and how it would be applied widely.
So I have nearly 3 teenagers at home.
Yeah.
Right. One that's 11, almost 12, but acts like a teenager, and the other 2 are. How do you get them from 0 to 1?
From 0 to 1? Yeah. One of the greatest challenges that we deal with, and this is not just teenagers, and I'll tell you what I have learned the last 15 years of repping this simple process is that it's not a teenage process. It's not an athletics process. It's not a sports process. This is a human process.
Okay.
So let me boil back out to the fullest extent here. The most important thing that we do is we tap into the intrinsic motivation of the person across the table or the team across the table. What is their will? So early on, when I would do a character talk, I could come in and leverage my authority as a coach to a teenager and say, you guys are going to go home and do something nice for your mom. 80% of the kids would do it because they didn't want up downs. So they didn't want to make them sprint or out of respect or reverence for coach, which coach has a lot of authority.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize early on was when I stopped and said, this is where we're going, general priority trajectory, you have to figure out where you want to apply this. You tell me where you're going to apply this. What's your relationship that's struggling the most? And what's the small action you're going to do to change this?
You ask them to do an inventory of some sort, maybe not using that word, but
right. Instead of saying, here's where you need to grow, even though I may know where that kid or that executive, that CEO needs to grow, it may be evident and obvious across the table. I will say, you tell me where, because once someone picks where they want to go, we've tapped into the singular, most potent energy source on this planet. It's not oil and gas. It's not nuclear energy. It's the will of a person. A human being, their intrinsic will is the most powerful energy source on this planet. Buildings are built by the will of man.
Yep.
Once you tap into that. So what you find go back to your teenagers, start with where they are and start with what they want to change. What's one thing you'd like to be different in 90 days? What's one thing? What's one thing that you want? Now, one of the challenges we deal with teenagers is, and I'm sure you see this with yours, I'm the proud owner of several teenagers as well. And we have so much perspective because we've lived decades. They haven't even finished their second decade. And we can take our multi-decade perspective and wisdom and try to force it on their lack of perspective. And we just can't, it doesn't work that way. So where are they and where would you like to grow? Some of them are going, oh man, I'd like to, I'd just like to get a B in that class, but you should be getting an A. But if it's better and if it's theirs, it's a great place to start. So the will of another person. We have all of our coaches. We practice this when we work with teams. We call it check in for buy-in, where we inspect that the will of the other person has been brought to the table. Because at the end of the day, if I tell someone how to grow and I tell someone what to do and the results aren't great, they will push it back on me. But if they tell me where they want to go, if they tell me what they want to do, and they walk away and try it and the results aren't great, it was their choice, not mine. Mm-hmm. So I am, I believe the one unclimbable mountain in this planet, the one unclimbable mountain is the will of another human being. And I respect the will of another human being.
That's awesome. There's a lot of patience involved to take that approach.
Right. But the good news is when a teenager decides to summit a small hill in the grand scheme of life, I'm going to make my bed each day. I'm going to say thank you to mom twice a week. They decide to summit a small hill. Frequently what happens, if you've ever climbed, I'm sure you've climbed, you look like an adventurer. When you get to the top of a hill, we tend to almost covet the bigger hill that we can see from the top and go, I wonder what the view's like from up there.
Yep.
And so that small hill tends to create a sense of hunger of wanting to climb more or wanting to climb something even bigger and even a greater risk. And so one of the mistakes we make as just parents, not that this is about parenting, but I believe parenting is a form of leadership. We are leading them. One of the mistakes we make is that we see the giant summit mountain that they are going to have to attack, and we almost force it on them before they're ready to climb that. They're ready to climb the hill. They're not ready to climb K2.
Yep.
Even though we know their journey will require K2 at some point down the road. So it's about readiness for climbing than the actual hill that they're on right now.
Okay, so now I've got two paths I want to go down. I want to go down kind of the parent path, but also the coaching path. So, let's go with the parent one because there's stuff coming up for me a little bit as you share here. And as a parent, we screw things up. At least we think we do, right? And generally, it's not unrepairable, right? Like you'd have to really do something terrible to be unrepairable. And so, what do you say to parents or executives or leaders who kind of need a do-over? Like maybe they've been pushing that K2 climb when it should have just been, 5 or 6 times up the bleachers.
Yeah.
How do you help somebody recalibrate or come back in and create a safe space to begin again?
Yeah. The old adage, the best day to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best day is today, right? We all want the fruit in the shade of the tree that took 20 years to get there. But at some point we got to put it in, we got to wait, right? So no matter what we've done and brought to the table up to this point, today's the best day to start. Now here's the greatest news of all. My life is a living testament of that. of this truth. We live in a universe where people can change.
Yes.
I'm not against personality traits. I think there's great value in them. I'm not against strengths. I'm not like the diagnostics. There's great value in that. But the universe we live in, people can change. The addict can recover. The broken can be made whole. The confused can get clarity. So we live in a universe where people can change. Parents deal with a great sense of guilt and a great sense of self-condemnation. And oftentimes that sense of condemnation holds them back from starting today. Now, having said that, I like to call it the crowded out principle. So imagine we have a 3-seater couch and there's 3 occupants on the couch, and we realize we don't want any of them on the couch. There's actually someone who comes to our house that's of greater honor, and we would rather them sit on the couch. One of the best ways to get the right people on the couch is just to have that person start sitting down and making it incredibly uncomfortable for all of them to be there on a 3-seater couch. Force that one in there. And what ends up happening is, if you think of the occupants on the couch like habits, if we establish the right habit, we can crowd out the wrong thing. Let me give you an example. In my work with teenagers, they would come to me and they would say in our season, I want to have a healthy relationship with mom. They would say, I want to stop raising my voice to my mom. I want to stop talking back to my dad. First of all, I don't.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah. Sign up for that. Right. I'm not a parenting expert. I'm figuring this out as well. I believe that whatever expertise, if I have it, is, I would more say I'm a passionate, committed student of growth and how growth works. So because of that, I would find kids would come and say, I want to stop arguing back with my mom. Well, how do I measure that? I can't hold them accountable. I sit down across the table. Did you argue with your mom? Oh, well, I think I was nicer to her. Like, that's squishy.
Yep.
So what we do is we practice the crowded out principle. So I've found that if I have a negative behavior that I'm doing, this is my negative behavior, there is usually a positive antidote action to that. So boil down the negative action to its positive antidote in opposite.
Okay.
So if the kid is talking back to mom, that's a verbal issue, that's a interpersonal relational dynamic. We replace it with intentional gratitude. So instead of the kid saying, I'm going to stop arguing back with my mom, I help the young man come back and say how many times a week they're going to intentionally, specifically thank her for something. Here's why.
You reframe it.
We reframe it.
Yep.
And because our minds can only hold so many things at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, people that walk away with growth lists of 35 are doomed to fail. They fail. You cannot have 35 things in your mind at a time and be effective at any number of those. So what we do is think of our mental capacity. It's a limited couch. It's a 3-seater couch. It's a 4-seater couch. Call it whatever you want, but there is scope and there's boundary to it. And currently my responses are filling that couch. So I'm going to take my intentionality and I'm going to take something that's the positive antidote of something that's in the couch right now. And I'm going to force it into the couch, and I'm going to start repping that and put it on the couch of my mental focus and my intentionality. And over time, what's going to happen for that teenager is specific gratitude is going to be a more of a default over time and over reps, not one time, not even 5 times. But when the rep is 10, 25, 35, 45, 50, it redefines a relationship, and the kid wakes up and goes, oh my goodness, I don't think I've argued with my mom in like 2 weeks.
Nice.
But if they sit down on the negative side and say, I got to stop. It's okay. So now that's what this isn't a kid growth thing. This is a human growth thing. So if a parent looks at their habits with their kids and says, this is my struggle. This is where I'm off. And we all have it. I have it. I don't know about you, but I have it. Here's my off. What's the antidote on? And I'm going to intentionally focus on that, repeating that small opposite, like almost like a medicine to the negative thing that I'm doing. And I'm going to start today, and I'm going to sow it and sow it and sow it and sow it and know that in time, it's going to change the dynamic. It's going to become more part and parcel to who I am and my demeanor. I live in a universe where things can change and people can change.
So I can totally see the talking back to mom and now being in gratitude. Hey mom, thanks for making my breakfast. Thanks for doing my laundry. Thanks for, giving me a kiss before bedtime. Thanks for picking me up. Thanks. Like there's an infinite list, right? Thank you to all the mothers and fathers out there. Give us a couple. I know people are listening and they're trying to grab this. So do you have a couple other examples of the don't, shouldn't, wrong, and maybe the more reframed positive? Like, what do you see a couple other ones that might help people grab this idea?
Yeah. In a leadership setting, I'll have young managers that we work with in the course of our training, that will say things like, I want to be more confident. I want to be more confident is really a positive way of saying a negative.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They're saying I lack confidence and I want to stop that. So I want to be more confident. So we'll drive it down to, okay, who's the most confident, effectively confident person that you know, and what are those actions that they do? Define it by action. What is effective confidence? And once they start defining effective confidence by a specific action, oh, that looks like smiling and thanking someone when I walk out the room. Awesome. That's great. How many times a week are you going to do that? And when do you want to start? You might have in 2 weeks. I
love when are you going to start?
And when are you going to start?
Right. Because if you're going to be in this work, there's always a buy when.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I sit across, I don't sit across coaching tables one-on-one with teenagers much anymore. We have people on our team that do more of that, but most of it is CEOs, rising managers, team dynamic, like executive
mm-hmm.
leadership teams. I never leave a table without defined actions that they've committed to do. And there is a very clear, here's when I'm coming back. And I tell this to all of our clients, all of our coaches say this to the clients, is when we meet you next time, we will not ask you how you are. We will ask you, how did you? Teenagers, the foundations of what I learned about growth, I learned from teenagers. And let me boil it down as simple as I can. We do not grow by knowing. We grow by doing. Doing is where the growth is, not knowing. If knowing produced the growth, YouTube would have solved the world's problems.
And I do like YouTube.
I do too. But it's the point in which I take a video, I go out into my garage, I get my toolkit, and I do what the handyman says, and I accomplished it. Then it becomes knowledge that I have. The Hebrews.
It goes from information to application.
The Hebrews, the term wisdom is, humanly understood in any culture. But the Greco-Roman, the Greek understanding of wisdom was very heady. It was very intellectual. The Hebrew understanding of wisdom was quite different. Well, how they understood wisdom was skillful handling. So if I said you're a wise farmer, the Hebrew would have understood that as you have a great farm. I could go look at your fields and see the depth of your wisdom. But Greek understanding of wisdom was less practically applied and more, which is why we got the philosophers. And so we could sit and be wise talking about things. Sadly, in our culture, we are more influenced by the Greek understanding of wisdom than we are by the Hebraic understanding of wisdom, which is important because the reality is we grow by doing. And in doing, we become wise.
Yeah, the experiential part of learning is so powerful. So one of the things we discussed and we both agreed on earlier was the idea of progress. Right. So and there were two things that came up, and you can go wherever you want to go with this, but like I always say, don't let perfection be the enemy of good.
Yeah.
Right. So good enough is get going. And I forgot the other one I was going to say. So let's go with progress.
Yeah. We say it ad nauseum to our client partners, our growth partners, in the corporate space, and even those who come to us on an individual growth area. We say we chase progress, not perfection. And the amount of people who are waiting until everything is just right to start.
Oh, that was the other one, right?
Yeah.
You just triggered the other part. Was in the pathway to progress.
Right.
Thanks for triggering my line here. But in the pathway to progress, right, getting started 0 to 1, there's also that unworthiness piece that, my life, my finances, my fitness, my family, my relationship with God, whatever it is in such disorder that I can't really begin over here.
Yeah.
Right. And so we talked about sort of the both and ands. And so as you're bringing people into this space, asking them to now step into the arena, get out of the stands and go into the arena and begin to do have some progress. How do you also coach into in the same spot maybe that unworthiness piece?
So what I'm hearing you say is that many people, like self-condemnation, regret of the past, can hold them back from even just starting.
Yes.
Right. You're exactly right. And I use what someone used with me that helped shake me out of stuck.
Okay.
Let's
hold this.
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna tell the story.
Yeah.
But before you tell me how you got shook out of stuck, tell me what you were stuck in. Because you're a put together dude, right?
Well,
and sometimes when people listen, and I'm sure you see this in the coaching space, it's like, well, that's good for you. Or if I were where you are, yeah, I totally do that, but I'm not where you are, right? So there's value for folks to hear, when somebody who's as put together and as successful as you are, that, hey, wasn't always this way. So give me that stuck story and then how you got shook.
Yeah. So that undefeated season that we go back to 15 plus years ago, I was a young professional out of school. I was a teacher. I was a coach. I was low on the org chart, but I was growing in my career. I set out, I felt like my purpose was to help people change lives. Sports was an incredible medium to do it. I was very familiar with sports. It was integrous with my faith. I mean, I had all the markers. And so I'd been at the school, as a coach, assistant coach. I was now a head coach of a junior high team. And I was kind of growing in both reputation and in role at the school. And the head of the school calls me into his office, and which is a little bit strange because I was several levels beneath him on the org chart. Why he would call me in, it was May. And he calls me in and he said, Brandon, I'd like to promote you here at the school. And of course, I'm young, 20 something, I'm full of vigor and I think I'm a pretty big deal. And, my thought was well, I'd kind of like to be promoted here. It's kind of, let's go.
About time.
Yeah. It's about time. Seriously. Doesn't he know all that I do, Yeah. And there was this dramatic pause and he looked at me and he said, but I can't.
Okay.
And it sat me back in my seat. And, of course,
so I'd like to promote you,
but I can't.
Okay.
And he began to list out certain things, certain gaps in me professionally that he observed that he said had to change.
What a gift.
Absolutely. If you had been sitting in the meeting and said, dude, this is a gift, this guy's giving you a gift right now, I would have told you to shut up and back off. Right. That's where I was in life. And so he listed out some specific things that were holding me back, from really growing in his ability to promote me at that school, tied to certain things I was doing and certain things I wasn't doing. But I worked hard. I showed up early. I worked hard. I did things with passion. I've always been a person with passion. And so I left the meeting angry. I spent about 2 weeks in a personal pity party. It was going into summer. And he said to me, I want you to take the summer and I want you to come up with a strategic plan to change these 3 specific things. And I want you to show me that plan in July, August. Well, I was so young. And
can you tell us what the character areas were?
I'll tell you one specific one. The most notable one was as a 20, maybe 26-year-old, working at a school. He said, I gave off the perception to parents that I knew how to parent their kid better than them.
Ooh.
And he very gently but directly pointed out that some of the parents of my athletes could be my parent by age. And at that time, I didn't have children. I was newly married. And he pointed out he didn't call it hypocrisy, but it was a gap. It was a gap. It was clearly a gap. And really a lot of what it boiled down to was perception. because of how confident I am, which, by the way, this is why I think strengths-based engagement has a backside to it that needs to be discussed in the growth space. Because every like glaring strength that a person has, it casts a weakness shadow.
Yeah.
Someone who's excellent at communication can either have a real shadow of listening or a perceived shadow. Because in the spaces that they're in, they are exercising that strength, and other people don't always feel heard in that midst. So whether it's really a weakness of listening or it's a perceived weakness, you and I know someone's perception is their reality. So whether I thought that I could parent those kids better than the parents or it was perceived, perception is reality. And he graciously said, take the summer. I want you to come up with a strategic action plan of strategic action plan to change this, and tell me what you're going to do. And I was young enough in organizational leadership. I was young, 26. This was my first job out of college. I didn't realize he had put me on a PIP.
And you had gone undefeated in your first night.
Yeah. We had gone undefeated in football. We had our baseball team had exceeded all markers of success that we had, only lost a couple games. And it was because we had a junior high team that actually lost a game to a high school varsity team at a tournament.
Oh, wow.
But it was only by a score of like 4-1. And so we had incredible success, but there were these things that were holding me back. And I'm so grateful that he intervened I'm grateful that he named my stuck. So I come back and I'm looking at two things. I'm seeing young men who aren't changing, yet we're winning. And I'm seeing, whether it was real or perceived, a gap in which I can't move forward. So the young men needed change, and so did I. The reason I'm so passionate about Undefeated Growth in our 5-pillar process is that it is literally how my life changed. Not just teenage boys' lives changed, not something I applied to them. I applied it to myself. So while that first season, I required the boys to do small, repeatable actions to change things, I was concurrently doing the same things in my professional world. Now, I ended up working at that organization for, maybe 15 more years. And I did get promoted. The same man who said he couldn't promote me eventually promoted me into the role where I oversaw all parent education, training, and development.
Wow.
And I am firmly convinced it's because what is the core process of Undefeated Growth is the process that changed my life, that changed the young men's life, that changes CEOs' lives, that brings holistic growth in workspaces and professional spaces, self-leadership, work leadership, all the different areas. I was stuck. And, I spent 2 weeks having a pity party until I realized that there was truth to what the man was saying to me, and I needed to change. So it set me on a change journey.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, it's amazing that you used that moment and that time, right, to set the foundation for your company, Undefeated Growth. And we'll talk about that. And in a similar story is my book, The Results Tree, was really my process of shifting and changing and creating repeatable stuff. And now we offer that to folks at navigatingleaders.com. And so there's that, there's this idea that we're best able to help who we were yesterday or who we were last week.
Right.
Because I've been through that fire. I've been through that journey. I've been through that experience. And now I have something that I want to share.
Yeah.
Right. Really, it's like if you can get through this easier, safer, cleaner, than I did, then what value, right, to share.
Yeah.
So tell me about Undefeated Growth and your 5 pillars. You were kind of setting that up. Let's hear about that.
So working with teenagers year after year, rinse, wash, repeat, seeing same transformation. At first I thought, this is for boys. And then I was the varsity softball coach and I repped it with the young ladies at our school, and they had the same growth markers. They had the same growth outcomes, different settings, same progress and growth. I was, of course, repping it with myself. And then I had a dad come to me and say, hey, can you do this for me in my marriage? And we walked through the 5 pillars of growth. I walked through it, helped him apply it. And he saw radical transformation in his marriage that was on the way headed toward a divorce. And he turned it. I didn't turn it. He turned it. Then another dad.
Do you know some of the things that he did to turn that relationship?
Yeah. So
I'm sure there's people listening going to give me something.
Absolutely. Here. And I want to, a person's growth actions and intentional actions are nuanced for their context,
Absolutely.
Right? So for example, go back to a teenager. Some young man may do the dishes 3 times a week in order to grow in his relationship with his parent. But that may not be as valuable to mom and dad in the season and context that they're in. So I always want to give.
And the come from, right? So this is one of the things I think I've told the audience here, the story about how my attitude towards dishes changed, right? I used to grumble and hate and, and get angry about how people stacked them and they got the bottom of the dish, like all that, right?
Yeah.
But then my heart changed.
Right.
And now I do dishes with joy, and it's worship and it's gratitude. And so I get that there's an absolute essence to my action has to be co-aligned with the right heart space.
Right.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. One of the actions he chose was, each night, when they settled the kids, he was going to intentionally sit next to her wherever she was, whether it was in bed, on the couch, intentionally sit, turn phone off, look her in the eye and just say, tell me all about your day.
His mother.
No, this was the
the wife.
This was husband and wife.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And so he starts.
For boys out there, you could say that to your mom too, and it would melt her heart.
Absolutely. Continue. Absolutely. Yeah. You want an extended curfew time? Just rep that action. Right. So he did it and he began to turn a marriage that was really struggling in about 3 months. By the way, what I had observed with men in messes at this point, I'd walked with other dads who were in messes.
That's a book, by the way, Men in Messes.
Well, but here's what men in messes do. Because we're fixers, we see a mess, and if it's a marriage mess, we're going to buy the diamond ring, we're going to buy the gold bracelet, we're going to book the Bahamas vacation. And we're going to do the dramatic, radical, extreme change action. The problem with all of those, and it's a problem, is that I can give the drastically expensive gold ring. I could go on the incredible vacation with my wife, and we come back to the same habits that got me in my mess in the first place. Mm-hmm. If the habits don't change, the status quo won't change. So this man changed his dynamic, his working habits with his wife. Then another dad came.
So he put on the sofa, turn off the phone.
Yes.
And tell me about your day.
Yeah. And he works at a major DFW based company, global organization, has a really important job, as we all do. Right. But he turned it off so that he could turn on intentionality and availability to his wife in small doses that, and he invited me into accountability for that. And I held him accountable. He did the action. So after 3 months, he's like, we're sitting on the couch laughing again together. We haven't laughed together in years, but we're laughing together. Thank you. And I'm asking him, why are you thanking me? I didn't sit on the couch next to your wife. You did. Mm-hmm. Again, go back to the intrinsic motivation. When a person picks an action and a person reps the action, the growth outcomes belong to them.
So talk to me. Yes. And talk to me about the accountability piece. What is it? How does it work? Who gets to be part of your accountability group? Why is it essential? How do you reset it and start it like that? I mean, that is a foundational piece in this space.
Mm-hmm. So I believe that the best accountability partner is someone who loves my potential more than they love my feelings.
Like that administrator at the school.
Absolutely.
That sat you down.
Absolutely. He loved my potential, in my professional potential, more than he loved my feelings. If he had loved my feelings and wanted good feelings in our dynamic, he would have never said the hard thing.
Well, I want to pause here. You're 26-ish.
Yeah. Ish.
Okay. Yeah. So the audience, wherever you are out there, like going back to the tree thing, right? Mm-hmm. The best time to plant the tree was 20 years ago or 100 years ago. And the best time to have made a change was yesterday. But for young folks, you are far more nimble, far more flexible. Your neural pathways are not as entrenched. Like you can take ground faster than some of the more wise gray-haired folks in the room, because our habit patterns are so much stronger, and our social status and our social construct and our community, like everything around us is more rigid. It's more set because it's been around longer, right? Like nothing different than that, right? In how people view us and have expectations about us, right? So I just want to folks who maybe are just getting started in their professional career, or just getting started in this growth space, like there's a gift in being young in that you don't have as much to overcome, right? And it may not seem that way, it may not feel that way, but you really can pivot, right? And on a dime. And so I just invite folks, we're gonna end here in a little bit with some growth steps and some how-tos and some applications. And so I just want to encourage everybody listening to listen to what Brandon's going to share with us here in just a second, but also know that it's never too late to start, but you actually have an advantage because you're still pliable like you were when you were 26. Like you took that as a great affront, but then took all your vim and vigor and got after it and figured out something.
Going back, I know we go back to my sports coaching. I will take a coachable young person with less talent and accomplish more with that athlete than I can with high talent, low coachability.
Well, the Navy SEALs do the same thing with loyalty, right? Trust.
Yeah.
Right. Can I trust you with my wife and my money?
Yeah.
Right. Because they go and fight and die together in really spooky spots. Yeah.
So what you're talking about is, I would call it coachability.
Yeah.
We say this a lot all across the board with the people we walk with. It's okay to be where you are.
It's the only place to be because it's where you're at.
It's not okay to stay there.
Yes.
Okay.
So how do you move them?
Yeah. You move small repeated actions. I've seen, whether it's the executive leader or the executive team who says, yeah, we should build a learning management system. We should develop a new client service. We should become the company that, or whether it's the teenage young man who says to himself, yeah, I should develop a relationship with my mom or with the Lord, or should people, I see that people often have a sense of where they would ultimately like to go in a category. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a sense of, I want to be successful when I go down the road.
What victory would look like.
Yeah, absolutely. In some domain. What I have more often found is if I ask a person a simple question, okay, so that's what you want. That's great. What's the single intentional action you're doing this week to get closer to that? And if I get a blank stare, the likelihood that person will accomplish that vision is very low. But if someone has this is my next step this week that I'm getting toward that, I'm applying for junior college. My dream is to own my own company. This week, I'm putting my application into junior college. Why? Because it starts my process of education. That's fantastic. The person who knows the next step, it's like if I said, I want to drive to California. I want to go see the sandy beaches and, San Diego Zoo. You should rightfully ask me, which direction out of my driveway do I need to turn? In grand vision, most people don't know which direction out of their driveway. So if they don't have the first steps figured out, and if they don't have the first steps figured out, ready to go, then what ends up happening is that destination stays as like fuzzy dream, as something I'll get to do someday, and it never becomes reality. I was with a young man, mid-20s, trying to jump into career, and we basically, from where he wants to go, I said, okay, where would you like to be? And the question I asked him was, when you bring your son home someday, when you're married and you bring your son home, what do you want your work dynamic to be like? To have the access and availability to your son. What you tell me that? And he's like, well, I don't want to be working, 22-hour days. I don't want to be on call on that. and go, okay, so this is that industry that you said that you want to go into. In order to get to that freedom and flexibility that you told me, that's at least 5 years experience. So where are you at? Do you have your certification? No, I don't. Cool. Do you know where to get certifications? No, I don't. So how about you text me in 1 week and you tell me the next 3 things you got to do to get on a path toward that certification? Because tons of people know where they want to go. They don't know which direction to turn out of their driveway to get to that ultimate destination. And I find that if you stack next 3 steps, the steps we take start to get bigger. They start to get more consequential. And the dream and the vision that we're chasing starts to get closer and closer and closer. And then it creates momentum. The problem, like growth and momentum work together. It's contagious. When growing people are around growing people, they tend to stir each other up. The problem is, so does stuck. Stuck is contagious as well. People talking about what they'll do someday without a next step. Those people tend to congregate together. They sit down and they have great coffee talks. They even have mentors, but they're the same year after year after year after year. They don't turn it into action.
Or because it's safe, or there's some limiting belief operating. So Christy and I are in this space where we have so much activity in so many domains, and it can quickly become overwhelming, right? And so we're in this season right now where we're really being intentional about, do we have the next step scheduled, booked, the meeting, the appointment, whatever it is, like knowing we're pointed in the right direction. Like, for instance, our daughter, Michaela, who's got some special needs from her epilepsy and brain surgery, which folks have heard about. We're working to have her be a high school cheerleader, right? And there's all sorts of stuff we're facing in that, right? The entering criteria for being a cheerleader, the legacy of the program, and some other things, but we have our next meeting scheduled, right? And so the moment we've done that, we then lay the rest of it down. Right? I'm not going to worry about step 3, 4, 5, 50, 75, 95, because in that, now it becomes overwhelming. Now I'm paralyzed. Now I'm living in fear and anxiety, which we're not designed to do. And so something we're doing is being very specific about, in each of the major domains or tasks, what's the next step, and do we have it scheduled? And the moment we have that, then we use that collectively between the two of us. Like, nope, hey, we got that coming up on Wednesday at 1:45. Until then, this one is, at rest. We'll get to it, and then we'll figure out what the next step is.
Yeah. I think that's a brilliant way to do it, because a wise man once said, tomorrow has enough worries of its own.
Oh my gosh.
And seek first the kingdom of God today. Yeah. Right. But
tomorrow, and my daily bread, right? It's all daily.
So one of the things, and I tell this with our clients a lot, is we all carry heavy stuff. Just you're carrying that every single day. I'm carrying things with my family. I'm carrying things with business. You're carrying things with business. Everybody carries heavy things. What we have to do is we have to develop habits of where to place those anxieties and where to let them. So what you're doing is that you're taking the next step, you're putting on your calendar, and you are requiring your calendar to carry that anxiety. Your unwillingness to pick it back up when the next action is scheduled means that your calendar is going to have to carry it. And so when I train someone who, in coaching them, who they've got a strategic project coming up, something like this, something big, heavy, a presentation, whatever it is, we say, okay, great. So that presentation is on June the 1st. Wonderful. What's the build-up process to produce it with excellence? I've got to do this and this and this. These are the 4 things that have to happen. Awesome. How much time does that take? This is how much time that takes. Cool. Show me in your calendar where you have that time committed to produce those components of the presentation. Reverse build it. And then we move them to put it on the calendar. Once it's on the calendar, you don't have to worry about it anymore because that's next Tuesday at noon's responsibility. It's already been committed. And a lot of times what people will do is they'll just carry it inside about something big and looming that's coming, and they'll carry it inside without calendaring it. And they wear the anxiety for it.
And they're processing it constantly.
Exactly. So you putting it on your calendar is a masterstroke of being able, the scripture calls it casting your anxieties on the Lord. But whether someone follows the Lord or not, every human deals with anxiety. That's not a Christian thing. That's a human thing. We are told to put it to the Lord. And by putting it on the calendar, that trusts that what happens between now and then, the Lord is going to work in all the different ways to equip me, prepare me, and ready me to step into that moment and nail it.
Do you ever bump into people with resistance to like running a strong business calendar and maybe a family calendar and maybe a long range strategic calendar? Like there's lots of tools in this space, and it is hugely empowering. So have you bumped into people that have resistance, and how do you help them overcome resistance? Because I'm a big fan of long range scheduling.
Yeah, I do sometimes encounter people who they don't like strategic planning. Fortunately, when I meet with someone, sometimes it comes from a pain point. Like, okay, here's the feedback I got from my boss. I need to make some changes. Right. So there's a little bit of built-in readiness on that. But what we do is I'll zoom people out and ask them the question, where do you want to be in 90 days? Where do you want to be in 120? Where do you want to be? I don't go beyond 5 years because so much life can happen in 5 years. Anyways, I'll pull someone back and go, where do you want to be? Where are you now? What has to happen to get there? And then do you have the time allocated and committed in your calendar so that can become a reality? And if someone can't answer that question, again, going back to, I want to go to California, but I don't know which way out of the driveway, that person is not going to get to California if they can't tell me the first 3 turns. So I'm going to guide someone into owning the first 3 turns. In my coaching space, I'll almost always, I'll lean in and help the person find their motivation for the action that they're chasing, the priority they're chasing, because ultimately the outcomes are theirs. They shouldn't thank me for having a better marriage if they did the work.
Yeah.
It's their work, not mine. My marriage is my responsibility, not theirs. So, however, there are times, Gabriel, where I will flex and say, I'd like you just to trust me on this. I'll tell someone early on in a coaching journey, I'll say, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 times in our process that I'm going to look at you and say, trust me. And that's when I know an action that I'm confident you need to do, and I'm confident you're going to like the outcome. Now, it's a risk. I step out into a space that if they don't like the outcome, it's going to blow back on me. But if I'm highly confident, just trust me on this. I may step out and flex and say, I want you to trust me on the next month on strategic planning and booking that 1 hour. Sometimes I'll call it innovation hours. You have a senior manager who has the day-to-day battles and demands, but they have a strategic project that they've been handed or they've signed up for, but it never seems to get done, and it looms over them. It starts to take out family time because it's not getting planned. And I'll lean in on them and say, let's work on your working plan and let's get that committed in your calendar, and then rep those innovation hours. Just rep the 5 this month. They can be let's put them on your calendar, and I'm going to hold you accountable to just execute those 5. And then let's see where you are at the end of the month. And if it's getting you closer to where you want to be. And if it's not working, we'll regroup.
Well, that's like 5 hours in a 160-hour work week, or
absolutely
180 hours.
And if we don't plan, there are 1,000 waiting important things that will tell you what you can't do.
Or urgent, maybe not important.
Well, urgent and important.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a difficult client relationship or some damage control that has to be done. It's important, but it's going to tell you that you can't innovate. But the problem is, I like to think anyone who builds an executive leadership team, anyone who works in executive leadership, they need to see themselves as the old time builders of train tracks.
Okay.
So the old time builders of train tracks, they'd get this virgin pristine land. They'd clear the land of the trees. They would lay the tracks. But fast forward 10, 15 years after the tracks are laid, it's a commerce route of people going. if you're an executive leader, you have to see yourself as a train track layer, not someone who already exists with train tracks, but your job is to clear the land so that your people can move forward. If your people are waiting on you to do their job, you are failing as an executive leader. Your job is to lay the tracks. Their job is to drive the train. And they can't drive it where you haven't laid it.
Yeah. So
show me on your calendar where you're getting that strategic planning done. Show me where you're putting in the hours to lay that another 10 miles of track that helps your company get to the learning management system, get to the HR process, get to the whatever the priority is. But if you're not building tracks out ahead of your people, your company will know you are the lid to your company as an executive leader.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true for so many businesses and so many organizations. Yeah. And a good sort of canary in the coal mine in that is when people keep nudging you or asking you for, hey, have you signed that? Hey, where is this? Hey, I'm looking for that. Hey, can I get on your calendar?
Yeah.
Or when you do get on the calendar and people are asking questions where you're like, shouldn't you be making that decision? That's a place where they're either they're fearful or they don't want to take responsibility, or you haven't really truly given them authority, or it's an indicator.
Yeah, so, a lot of executive leaders I work with, they'll start by talking about empowerment, delegation, and I will frequently lean in and go, "What do you mean by that?" Because what some leaders mean by delegation is, I'm going to find someone on my team, I'm going to take that task, and I'm going to give it to that person and not think about it anymore. Yeah, how's that work in parenting? It doesn't. It's ineffective.
Yeah. Delegation
is not giving someone a task. There's a tell, show, let method. There's different methods of handoffs. I'm militant on if I'm going to delegate something, not only am I going to delegate, I'm going to hand it off. You're going to know what excellence looks like. You have to have observable excellence. You have to have observed what excellence looks like. And if I'm delegating something to you, you are going to know the day and the hour I'm checking in.
Mm-hmm.
And if I haven't demonstrated what excellence looks like, and I haven't nailed down the day and the hour of when I'm checking in, I haven't delegated anything. All I've done is sent a staff member off to wonder, hope, dream. And honestly, I'm handing off a giant gorilla ball of anxiety to that employee. And they're going to wonder, am I doing this the way the boss wanted? Because I'll have executive leaders come to me and they'll say, man, I want to get my people more innovative. I want them to perform better. They'll frequently point at their people. As I get inside their executive leadership team and I watch them in strategic quarterly and annual and biannual planning times, we call it target growth coaching when we work with executive teams to help them accomplish their organizational objectives. And I will see the working dynamic. These executive leaders will leave the table without clear check-in times, without clear accountability. And where there's not clear accountability, we know the adage, right? You only expect when you inspect. So that's not there. They have team members waiting for them to tell them what to do. They have team members waiting for them to make decisions on an infrequent interval. They don't know when they can get in the boss's office or a meeting to be able to get the check signed or get the variance approved. And what I find is sometimes the frustration that the executive leader has with their team is actually a reflection of executive immaturity. Now, I don't put that on my website because very few senior executives will come and say, I have executive immaturity. Most of them are not self-aware in that sense, but sometimes it's discovered in the process. We never call it out in the room. But one of my favorite things to do is working with an executive team and helping them develop executive health together, where they have working accountability rhythms. They know when they leave the room, everyone knows what everyone is chasing. I know that when we left the table, you're going to build more tracks that way in your department. I'm building tracks that way in my department. And when we come back at the defined interval, not when the boss calls the meeting, but it's a sacred rhythm. It's every 2 weeks. It's every month. It's every week, whatever is necessary for the organization and the executive team. That when we come back in the sacred rhythm, I know you will have laid a half mile of track in your department. I will have laid mine. And if I'm stuck somewhere, you may lend a hand and go, Brandon, I got you with that. I'll send some people over for that. I got you. So that my executive team is a place of help and advancement. It's a place of decision, and it's a place of direction. And that can get done in my executive team. And seeing teams find that healthy order together, oh man, it lights my fire.
Wow. Well, it sounds amazing and encouraging. If people want to know more about Undefeated Growth and where to find you, maybe follow you on some socials, where do they go? Yeah.
So our website, undefeatedgrowth.com. Anyone who ever wants to reach out, connections at undefeatedgrowth.com or Brandon at undefeatedgrowth.com. Just reach out to me directly, or through connections. Our team, we're a team of 7 executive growth coaches. We are growth coaches. We're not life coaches. There's a distinction there. But we're growth coaches where we come alongside individuals and teams, leaders in all different domains, and we help them go from stuck to strong. And using the same process, same vocabulary, same verbiage. Everyone on our team comes from incredible leadership domains. We've got business leaders. We've got seasoned educators, seasoned entrepreneurs who are bringing that inside the process, the same process that transformed junior high boys that now works with senior executives. And so undefeatedgrowth.com, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, TikTok, Undefeated Growth, at Undefeated Growth.
Do you have any cool dances on TikTok?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right.
There's no help. There's no help for my dancing.
No dance coaching?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So there's somebody out there on a treadmill, driving, walking, listening to this, that's wanting to go from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, you got me convinced, Brandon. How do I get started? Like, what would you encourage somebody to do in the next, 3 to 5 days?
So I would say first of all, name the priority.
Okay.
Where is it that you want to go?
Name the priority.
Name it. Is it you want to go to greater health? Is it you want your team to perform at a higher level? You want your team to manifest, to exhibit this characteristic, servanthood, servant leadership, whatever it is. Name it. You got to name it. If you don't name where you're going, well, you're going to get it, which is nothing.
Yep.
You name nothing, you get nothing. But it doesn't stop with naming. A lot of people can name where they want to go. It has to be turned into a small repeated action. So name it, define the next simple, reachable action. The outcome is not the action. The step is the action. So if I want to be healthier, my next action is not to become healthier. That's a hope. That's not an action plan. It's got to be a workable action plan that someone can check in and see that you've done it. Define that next simple action. This is where I'm going, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is when I'm going to do it. Then I'm going to invite someone in. Accountability. You have to have accountability. Our 5 pillars of growth: priority, action, accountability, reflection, celebration. And when we celebrate, we don't celebrate the outcomes alone, because we know that if a person is trying to become healthy, that's not the outcome of one action.
And it's not linear.
It's not. That's the outcome of 10,000 actions repeated in the same trajectory, in the same direction. If an executive team wants to be healthier, hit a growth mark, or a rising manager wants to be more confident, a better communicator, that's not a one-time thing. That's a 100-time thing. But we celebrate, and we train our leaders to celebrate. We actually have a training that we do called the Art of Celebration. We train people how to celebrate. We don't know how to celebrate. In our culture, we celebrate outcomes only. So let me go back to sports. Somewhere out there, high school football this fall, there'll be a team that will finish a glorious 3-9. That's deeply unimpressive, and have possibly the most remarkable and successful season in their history at 3-9. If success is only the state championship, that means every other team in the state failed. Now, I've coached long enough to know that the talent that I get every year that comes in, I've had teams that I think objectively, knowing youth and knowing performance at that level, that is probably a 2-8 group. They lack 9 of the skill positions. They don't have a kid who could throw. The receivers couldn't catch a cold. Now we're going to get them and we're going to develop them and we're going to make them better. But if it's a 2-9 talent team and that coach goes 6-5,
and we're winning the state championship this year.
Exactly. Yeah. We're winning the state championship this year. Someone's 100 pounds overweight and says in 3 months, I'm going to be fit for, whatever swimsuits, whatever. Right. That's absurd. It's unrealistic. We have to know where we're starting. We have to know our context. And so if we only celebrate the win outcomes and the performance outcomes, we miss all of the celebration. And the reality is, if we're chasing a really big priority, the journey to get there is long and slow. It is long, hard, and slow. We need to embrace it. So there are all these moments across the way that need to be celebrated. I remember, on the journeys to our undefeated seasons or even in difficult seasons, I remember going nuts on the sideline when I watched a 7th grade young man get his first tackle in his life in game 9 of the season. Meanwhile, I've got other boys who had pumped out 100 tackles at this point and were doing it very effectively. If I measured that young man first tackle game 9 with 109th tackle game 9, that kid would be uncelebratable, like ignorable, whatever. But if my celebration level changes for that young man, that's a problem in me. And that's me not knowing that young man's context in his growth trajectory. So what I would say to that person who's chasing growth, wants to grow, I would say, know where you're starting from. What is your starting place? It's okay to be where you are.
100% okay.
It is not okay to stay there.
Agreed.
So in 2 months, in 2 weeks, there's probably 3 to 5 actions that could be done between now and then that won't change everything, that will change something. I would beg you, stop trying to change everything with one thing.
Yeah. So we started this conversation about, highly effective people and what do they have in common? The answer is coaching.
Right.
And it can be in a formal relationship. It can be in just a mentorship relationship with somebody who's been there and done that. And you've asked for permission to have some of their time to get their feedback and their insights, and then nailed the accountability piece. Like we've got to have accountability in order to stay in the game. Right. Because if we're by ourselves, it's easy to quit.
And we can talk ourselves into and out of anything.
Oh, rationalize it all day long.
We're great self-negotiators.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for bringing all your insights from Undefeated Growth.
Yeah.
Thank you for this extended conversation here. To the audience out there, I know that there was value creation here for you. If you're somebody looking to get started. Like, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. Progress comes with the next step. We've talked about how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, and I promise it gets more tasty the further along you go. But we just got to get started. And so be honest, take an inventory, be kind, be gentle, be courageous, be curious, and get in the arena, right? Get out of the stands, get in the arena, get a little dirty, and see what you can create. So we appreciate you being here. Share this, subscribe, like it, drop in a text message to any of your friends that you think would value from this, and grab a copy of the results tree. It's got an amazing construct and a way to really apply most everything Brandon and I talked about here today. So until next time, my name is Gabriel Griess, your host of Navigating Leaders. Be well and God bless.